Hi, I'm doing a different type of job today. Well, the same, driving a lorry. This time it's a curtain sider because I'm doing a job today for a different agency. I work for two agencies. Let's call them Agency 1 and Agency 2. So Agency 1 I do the most of my work for, and I give them priority over Agency 2. And Agency 2 understand that I give priority to Agency 1. So because Agency 1 didn't have any work for me today, but Agency 2 did, that's why I'm doing this. So what I'm doing is doing localized pallet drops to local businesses. I think it's all businesses today, but it can be residential properties. Sort of like in and around Huntington, St Ives, around Cambridgeshire. And you know, it's quite a nice little job. It's you know, and you're not going too fast. So driving time wise, it's not going to be a problem for me. I doubt I'll use even 4.5 hours. So I don't really have to worry about the drive time today. With this job, because it's like at the minute I'm waiting around for another lorry to come out of one of the places that I'm delivering to, because they're only allowed one lorry in their delivery area, and he's got about 3-4 pallets still to do. So I'm waiting for him to come out so I can go in, and then I can unload. I think I've only got one pallet, and but because you're waiting around, you're getting out and you're doing more manual work. That's why you have to keep an eye on your working time regulations more than your driving time. You still need to keep an eye on both, but it'll be the working time regulations that I need to keep an eye on. So I started at 7, so I will need a break at 1 o'clock, and so we'll sort that out when we get there, see how far we get. And what I do is, so I can pretty much have my break anywhere and not go somewhere specific. If I need the ladies, I'll ask them when, you know, wherever I am, can I use them, and then I can just pull over anywhere. Or, you know, sometimes I'll ask the place where I'm dropping, do you mind if I just have my break here? Oh no. Or if they do, they say, well, you could have it over there though, or, you know. So just ask if you're not sure. People are really helpful. Yeah, so it should be an interesting day. Normally what I do, I haven't this time. This company are very good. What they do is they put the pallets on in the order that you're going to take them off. However, that doesn't always happen. So what you can do, what I do is just draw a little picture of a truck, a rectangle, and I put front, I put back, I put left and right, and then say for today I've got 10 drops, so I would put where my pallets are for which drop. So put 1, 2, 3, 4 and so forth, or if they were in different places, that's what I would do. I'll just keep referring to that. It just saves you, you know, hunting around for which pallet, you know, so you know exactly where to go, because this has got curtain sides, this truck, so you know, saves you opening those. If you know, if it's a forklift, you know exactly which side and which end to open. When you go to a delivery, you never really know what to expect. You don't really know how accessible your drop location is going to be, especially in this type of work. So you do need to consider several things. You need to consider the access for the truck, because you've got a large vehicle and a long vehicle too. So you've got to think about turning and whether you can access and exit the drop site, where you can unload safely, and also the ground surfaces involved, because in this instance I'm using an electric pallet truck, so it's fine on sort of like tarmacked pavements and, you know, block paving, but for gravel, you know, we just can't go there. These sort of like drops are curbside deliveries, but most drivers try and take the pallets to where the customers really want them to be, because it's a nice thing to do. But if there was a location that you did drop at and you couldn't get the order anywhere near the actual sort of like door or the service area, because the road, you know, the surface involved, perhaps it's gravel or perhaps there's a lot of loose stones, the electric pallet truck wouldn't be able to cope with that. It is usual for this type of work to use an electric pallet truck. The electric pallet truck is used to take the pallets off the truck, and it's great for slopes and curbs. When you just need that extra bit of assistance, the unmotorised pallet trucks are great on flat, smooth surfaces. Now we're just pulling up to a drop site here, and the drop site is just on the right where that little maroon coloured car is. But can you see there's a truck already in there, so I can't actually get in. So what I'm going to do is just park outside and in front of the truck a little bit, and then drop the tail and take the pallet off there. We're only going to be a few minutes at most, so we shouldn't be in anybody's way too much. One thing that I do tend to do before I make the drop, I check to see that there's somebody there to take the delivery. If there's nobody there to take the delivery, then I don't even open up the back. At this drop here, I'm going to have to reverse into that little road to the left, and then back up to a loading bay, and the loading bay has got barriers so that raise up. And as I was reversing back, this truck here that you can see was wanting to come in also, and there was also another truck behind me wanting to get out, and both these drivers were quite impatient, and all they had to do was just wait a few minutes and all would be well, but neither wanted to do that, and you've just got to accept it and just make sure that you're doing everything safely. This chap reversing back now didn't look at where he was reversing to, and didn't take into consideration that the loading barriers. He reversed and crashed right into the loading barriers, and the lady in charge was not very happy about it. I don't know what happened after that, but there you go. It's better just to stop forward and double check. Don't rush in, because that's when mistakes happen. I had to use the tail lift, so I stopped forward and then dropped the tail lift raced right up and then reversed in, and I got somebody to tell me when to stop. The next drop was really difficult to determine where the drop site actually was. It could have been at two different areas completely.
Yards, you will reach your destination.
Luckily there was a telephone number on the paperwork, and it turned out that the drop site was a new housing estate that was still being built, which was probably why it was a bit confusing. The access road to that new housing estate was quite narrow, and it had cars parked on it all the way down, and they weren't always on the same side either. So the access road was quite narrow, and I was hoping for a turning site at the bottom, but sadly there wasn't one. Physically there was a turning site, but apparently a Mick George truck had reversed there some months before and hit one of the entrance pillars to a housing complex, so now trucks were not allowed to reverse there. That meant reversing all the way back up to the top, which wasn't a problem. One of the chaps was very kind and guided me back. I didn't really need it, as the truck did have a reversing camera, but if assistance may help, then it can be useful. However, I'm going to put a note of caution in here. If you ask for help, or help is offered and you take it, you're relying on that person to give you to help you. So they could say turn left, turn right, or a little bit left, a little bit right, or keep coming backwards, what have you. If they get it wrong, and remember, they're not a professional lorry driver, you are. It's going to be your head, your license, your accident if something goes wrong. It's not them, even though you could have given them very clear instructions, but they may have just completely got it wrong, because they're not a professional truck driver at the end of the day. So technically you're not supposed to ask for help. What I do is I make a judgment call and give very specific instructions if I do use third parties to help out, and you do have to be very specific, and even then sometimes they get it wrong, so you've got to be aware that they could do that. So you still need to use all your normal observation skills. This was a drop that was very close to a road closure in a country village. It was quite difficult to tell where the closure was and which side my drop was in relation to it. I did ask somebody, but they were not very helpful and rather vague, and I wasn't entirely sure whether they understood what I was trying to ask them actually. Anyway, so I was approaching my drop site from the south. The other option was to come in from the north, but that would have meant a long diversion around some very small, narrow, bumpy country lanes, and in a large truck that always makes me a little bit nervous, because you don't know can you get through? Anyway, I decided I needed to take a look and see if there was the possibility, if I couldn't get through, could I walk the pallet through on the electric pallet truck. Just that would have been possibly an option. However, once I got there, that wasn't going to happen. My drop site was just the other side of the road closure, and there was no possibility of walking it past the obstruction itself, so one had just to reverse back and go on that long diversion through those narrow, bumpy country lanes. Sometimes these things just happen, and you do everything to try to negate such problems, but there was 3 road closures that were causing havoc in that area. This was my second road closure that caused me to divert, and both journeys should have taken about 5 minutes from my previous drop, but one took the best part of an hour because the diversion was quite long, and this one I think it took, I don't know, it was 20 minutes, half an hour or something, because I kept on having to stop and check with locals to see if I could get a truck through, because I just wasn't sure whether I could from the way that I was going. The alternative would have been an hour extra, and I really didn't want to do that. So in the end, I just started stopping cars, asking them, you know, do you think you can get a truck through there? You know, is it quite wide, etc. You know, so. But again, remember this, you're the professional, they're not, so you've really got to be quite probing in what questions you ask them if you are asking for help. People are always very happy to help, usually, more often than, well, pretty much all the time actually, but remember that the quality of that help may not always be to the standard that you need. This drop was to a residential address on a new housing estate. When I looked on Google Maps, the drop location seemed to be in a potentially difficult place. If there were no parked cars causing a problem, I thought it would probably be okay, but on some new housing estates the roads can be quite narrow, and they're not always in a straight line either, and when you get cars parking there, it can mean that you actually can't get past. If you're not sure in those situations whether you can get past, what you've got to do is you just got to get out and walk the route to see whether you can get through with a lorry. You sometimes need to do that in industrial estates, you know, to find a location. There's lots of, you know, if you're not sure, you just get out and walk and see whether it's possible. Anyway, so here we are, we're just approaching, as you can see, the housing estate. The roads haven't been finished yet, so they haven't been adopted yet, and it can always be a little bit difficult. I did check earlier, but can you see? I did manage to get past those cars, but it's not an easy thing to do always, and sometimes it's just virtually impossible. There we go. Again, what you've got to think about is how you're going to get out. So while I was checking to see whether I'm likely to get through, I'm also checking to see whether I can turn around, because I didn't want to come back that same way backwards, not with those cars there. Now I'm just looking to see which way I go. And you see, when you've got cars, and you know, people think in car mode, so you could get a car past that quite easily, but if just round that corner that you can't see what's just round that corner, could have been really quite bad. I think I'm looking for the house numbers. To see whether I do need to go around that corner. And when I got round there, it was absolutely fine, no problem, and I had a nice easy access out as well. I could go straight on round in a loop, so it wasn't a problem at all actually in the end, but you just never really know. Hi, because I've had 2 road closures that put me on diversion quite significantly, I've had to stop and have my break, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to get back to the yard. So I'm a bit annoyed about that, because I've got to have half an hour, but it's not worth getting the infringement, so you know, there you go. So I'm just pulled up. I'm going to be here for about half an hour, and I was really concerned. I couldn't trust the sat nav on this occasion, and I couldn't, you know, I don't know the area very well, unfortunately. The whole lorry has been emptied, so we're just good to go home, refuel, and then go and get ready for my holiday.